Good morning and welcome to today's training. We're going to be talking about fawning, the fawn response, and how it actually is the genesis. It's where codependency actually comes from. So, I imagine you may have heard of this response before. It's becoming more popular thanks to Pete Walker's work in his book Complex PTSD. He identifies fawning as one of the 4 F's that the brain has in response to threat. So those 4 F's would be fight, flee, fawn, and freeze. And he identifies in that material fawning as a response to a threat by becoming more appealing to the threat. Basically, he states, to quote him, a fawn response is triggered when a person responds to a threat by trying to be pleasing or helpful in order to appease or forestall an attacker. So that's the idea here. That's what codependency is all about. It's to become appealing to the narcissist, to the abuser, in hopes that they will, 1, keep you, 2, value you, and 3, ultimately love you. That's where that codependent fantasy comes from that we discussed in our previous yesterday's training. Very, very important, guys, for us to understand that our codependent responses are a survival response to a threat, a legitimate threat. Now, what's the threat that we're facing? The threat we're facing is the discard trauma. It's being thrown away, being excluded and expelled either emotionally, socially, relationally, financially, sexually, those kind of things, spiritually. It's this isolation, the threat of isolation from community, from family, from tribe, that's extremely threatening to us because we're social animals. We do not thrive in isolation, we die. And we know that instinctively. We have seen that in the history of our species and our beings. So it's very, very important for us to understand that when we're codependent, when we're showing up in a codependent response to someone, we're dealing with the brain's attempt to keep us alive by fawning. Very, very, when we understand it that way, we can have compassion. We can also understand that it's okay. I know I'm fawning. Okay, I feel threatened. What do I need in order to feel safe? What do I need to change in my life so that I'm surrounded by more safe people? And this is also another reason why the fawn response is another reason why I'm a big advocate of limiting contact or going no contact with abusers, especially parents or former spouses or exes, because the brain is configured to fawn with these people. And these people, their behavior is not likely to change. And honestly, if it did change, they would have to take some very serious efforts to demonstrate that change so that you could reasonably begin to feel safe without giving yourself up. See, a lot of times there's this element of codependent fantasy where they're like, they'll change and then I'll be, safe to be myself, kind of like what we were talking about yesterday. The thing is we're not going to feel safe to be ourselves because we've never been safe with them to be ourselves. So that's going to be an extremely difficult experience for us to manage if we're coming from this angle of thinking that they're going to love and respect us after this change. So I think what's most important is if you're in an abusive relationship with someone and you're looking to heal, and it's been a chronically abusive relationship and they're not taking accountability, they're not changing, it's best to exit, to start limiting contact with them and move towards no contact if possible, so that you can give your brain a chance to reconstitute its sense of safety and come back to its natural inborn genetic level of calm. Okay, we do deserve to be calm. It's built into us. It's that we've been stuck in trauma, and as Peter Levine describes it, trauma is a state of tension in the body that's hypervigilant towards the threat. And this keeps our body adrenalized. It keeps the cortisol and the adrenaline going, and the body is unable to work out that chemistry reaction back to calm because you're constantly being re-triggered because you're in a relationship with a threat. Okay? That's the trick here. We've got to be really honest that, hey, this relationship with this person's a threat to me. It doesn't support me. It's not on my side. I have to change who I am to be with this person. I'm in trouble. See, healthy, safe relationships don't require you to change who you are. All they require is healthy skills at communicating what you want, what you need, what your boundaries are, and expressing your emotions. That's all. That's the big difference. An unhealthy relationship wants you to be different, who you are to be different, to do things in a way that appeases them and regulates their emotions rather than that person being an adult and regulating their own emotions and having honest, direct, clear, and simple communication. So healthy relationships are actually pretty simple and pretty boring that way. I mean, relationships can be complex in their own nature, healthy or not, but ultimately a healthy person is going to be more interested in the well-being of you and themselves rather than creating chaos. Now, if we've got unhealthy skills, then we're going to show up in deficient or toxic ways, and that person needs to work on those skills, especially if they have a sincere desire to improve in the relationship. But if we're dealing with people that are abusing us, they're gaslighting us, they're physically harming us, they're emotionally harming us, they're criticizing our emotions, dismissing them, blaming us for holding them accountable, they're resistant to accountability and responsibility, we feel used and ignored and discarded by them. We're going through that consumer supply relationship, and we're in a toxic relationship, period. And that person is going to be a threat to your brain, and you've got to make space from them. So we've got to be really honest with ourselves here. When we have a fawn response to a person, we need to identify what is actually going on when we realize we're in that fawn response. And that requires contextual awareness. Like if this is a new person and you're having a fawn response, it might be time to step back and look at what's going on with you first. And also examine their behavior. Did they do something that triggered that's a legitimate red flag? Now, if you're dealing with someone who's been abusive and neglectful to you in the past, it makes sense to have a fawn response. You don't have to fix the response. What you need to do is fix your connection. You need to change how you're interacting with that person. And that doesn't mean change who you are. That doesn't mean go to codependent. That means change the relationship, i.e. you determine what you need for your well-being. And often that's going to be limited or no contact, okay? So let's talk about how fawning shows up so you can identify it in your own experience. Fawning shows up as creating discomfort in your world and a way to hopefully appease or please the feelings of the abusive or neglectful spouse, partner, friend, or parent. You don't want to upset them, right? You're focusing on their emotional regulation, their emotional comfort over at the expense of yours. You're not taking care of you. You're not recognizing your discomfort and your needs. Instead, you're denying or ignoring them and focusing on how they feel. You're people-pleasing, trying to make people like you. You're fixing or rescuing people from their problems. You're attempting to control their choices so you feel comfortable about what they are doing, rather than just owning your discomfort and regulating your own nervous system. You're denying your own pain, your own discomfort, your own needs and wants in exchange for them feeling good. Again, it reinforces that previous one where we create discomfort in our world in hopes to please them. We change our preferences to align with theirs. Okay, we absorb other people's preferences as our own, and then we end up empty, we end up disappointed, we end up unfulfilled because it's not aligned with our true value, voice, and vision. It's not aligned with our genuine happiness. It's aligned with theirs. See, this is obviously not an exhaustive list of how fawning shows up. Fawning can literally show up as just like, oh, please don't hurt me, I'm okay. Or it could show up as you're upset and you say, I'm fine, nothing's wrong. You know, you're stuffing or avoiding emotion. You're avoiding conflict. You're avoiding self-advocacy. So if you find yourself doing those things, don't shame yourself, acknowledge it. It's like, I feel this is a fawn response. My brain is perceiving a threat. Now I need to determine what that threat might be. Am I dealing with someone with a history with me that's been abusive? Yes, okay, legitimate threat. Am I dealing with someone who hasn't been abusive to me? Okay, now I'm having a trigger effect. I need to look into what's going on, because we're dealing with attachment trauma here, guys. So if we're getting close to someone that's healthy, we're going to start feeling, affection or vulnerability or closeness, and that can trigger fawn response because our association with those emotions is threat. See, in abusive systems, abusive relationships, we confuse love and threat as the same thing. So love and feeling threatened go hand in hand in those experiences for us. And when we get into a healthy relationship, we could have a fawn response because our somatic relationship, our internalized relationship with love is that it's a threat. I've personally dealt with that. That is something I've had to work on and have actually healed. I understand how real love feels and how it behaves, and I understand how my body feels when I'm in a toxic love experience. So it's been a really empowering position. So how do you handle fawning? There's 4 tips I'm going to give you today. 1, you start creating space from the abusive person. This allows you to help your brain feel safe so it can regulate down. 2, begin to regulate your nervous system. You can do that by getting my Calm system for free. You can just go to calm.freetheself.com. 3, begin to legitimize your experiences, your feelings, and your needs. When you become legitimate to yourself, the fawn response is going to drop significantly because now you're going to advocate for yourself. You're not going to push against your experience. You're going to receive it, and you're going to get deeper into your own well-being. I can help you do that through both the closure technique and resolving specific themes of trauma in your life, and also help you recondition your nervous system through the SAR, somatic awareness reprogramming stuff. And 4th, you begin to retrieve your value from outside of yourself. You retrieve your sense of value, your sense of worth, your sense of importance from other people's approval and rejection. This lessens the impact of approval and rejection because those are like the ultimate threats to us when we're in a codependent experience. And this also empowers us to hear our true voice, to know our real value, and to follow the genuine vision that we already have built within us. We just have to be tuned into it so that we can follow it. And that leads to just healthier relationships, happier daily living, and more fulfillment because we're more aligned with what brings us purpose, fulfillment in our lives. So if you want help with these steps, I encourage you to apply to the happiness strategy. We start here in about 12 days from now. That basically January 20th at 7 p.m. It's my 13-week training where I take you through healing trauma, retrieving your value, tuning into and listening to your true voice, and then following your vision for you. This eliminates your need to be codependent because now you have your value back and you can start choosing healthy things in your life and building out an extensive and a deep new experience with healthy things. So there you go, guys. I appreciate you. You can apply by clicking the link above on Facebook, on the link below on YouTube. Apply at freetheself.com. We've just got a few spots left. I'd be excited to have you as a student in that. Guys, it's okay if you're fawning. It's okay if you find yourself in a codependent response. Don't shame yourself for it. It makes sense why it's there. So honor it. But then also use it as a means to help you reconnect back to you and go, okay, I need to make changes about whom I'm associating with and build safer, more reliable, or trustworthy relationships in my life and resolve the trauma I've been through. Because your trauma matters, your pain matters, your experiences matter. They're not a signal that something is wrong with you. You do not. These feelings that come up are not a product of something wrong with who you are. They're a product of what you've been through. So you want to honor that and understand and respect that. Okay? Guys, thank you again for showing up for today's training. I appreciate your love and support. You guys give me a lot of messages, both publicly and privately, about how my work is impacting your life, and that is extremely validating and important to me because I do this because I got out of it. You can get out of it too. We don't have to suffer anymore. We don't have to placate. We don't have to be empty and lonely. We can have real love again. We can belong with people who love and enjoy us. We can have happiness again in our lives. Because I've done it. I have over 700 now clients that have done it. We're going to do more. Let's just keep increasing that impact and change the world one person at a time. Thank you guys. I appreciate you. And remember that you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping. And I'll see you in tomorrow's training. Bye-bye.